Hi there, Skid Evenstadi, CEO of OneWire, and welcome to Open Door. Today we're going to go interview my very good friend Debbie Wright, who's the CEO of Carver Bank, a bank based up in Harlem. In fact, it's the largest Caribbean African-American bank in the country. Debbie's a great lady. You're going to learn a lot. Let's go see what she's up to. I'm here today with my good friend, Debbie Wright, who is the chairman and CEO of Carver Bank. Debbie, thank you so much for having me over today. What I'd love to do is we're in your conference room and there's a lot of history. And if you could just take us around and show us the history of Carver before we go into your background, that would be awesome.
Well, it's actually a beautiful history and it parallels our country's amazing transformation. Those folks behind me were the original founders of Carver. This is signing the incorporation papers, and the story is that they went to Albany to get a bank charter for Carver to be a state bank, and they were turned down.
Okay.
And so they came back to the community disappointed, and everybody called the ministers and the doctors and the lawyers, and they put some more money together. And they got in their cars a few months later and went down to Washington and got a federal charter. So that's how we became Carver Federal Savings Bank.
Okay, so now here we are in Deborah's office.
That's it. This is my, it was a goodbye present. I was on the craft board for 10 years and I retired off last year, and so this was my goodbye present.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I think obviously their sales must have increased when they had you on the cover.
Yeah, I think it sold about two of them. Me and Peyton bought, one each. So, and these are sort of things from the past. That's a cute thing from the high school that I went to in Dallas. The independent school district picked some folks to try to motivate the existing kids today.
Before we start talking about your career here, let's go back to your childhood and what it was like growing up in the South.
I guess part of our history in this country is the race divide, and in Bennettsville, like many other places, there was a bit of a Mason-Dixon line, if you will, in terms of where blacks lived and carried on their daily lives. And so we had separate schools, and the library was off limits, and those kind of things. So when we were young kids, I think for me, first or second grade was when all of the big court decisions came down, striking down separate but equal. And so one Sunday morning, my father volunteered us to be one of the families that would be the first to integrate the Bennettsville elementary school system.
There's no question that had to have an impact in terms of, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. I ended up at a place called the New York Partnership, which is here in New York City, and it's where business comes together with trying to figure out how to make New York City better. I came up here to run essentially a public fund to, it's called the Empowerment Zone, and I was there when Carver got in trouble. And David Dinkins was on the board here, and so he called up and said, okay, I'm going to ask for that chip back. You got to come over to Carver and run Carver, and so that's how I got here.
It's amazing how many people have called you to say help, and you've done an amazing job. And I know that Carver Bank has that you've had some recent issues, which turned out successfully.
The industry is in a tremendous transition, and nobody knows where it's going to end up. The black banking industry is obviously a microcosm of all small banks, but it really comes out of an era of segregation. where middle class people. In fact, my first week here, Ossie Davis came to see me, and he had accounts here, and he said that when he and Ruby D were at the height of their popularity on Broadway, they could not get a mortgage.
Really?
And this was the only bank that gave him a mortgage. So he said he would be a loyal customer forever, and he was, and came back a few weeks later with his grandchildren, all kind of in blue blazers and everything. So, but that was then, and now is now, where black folks can bank anywhere they want to. And because of CRA pressures and others, banks have branches here that they didn't have historically.
Mm-hmm.
And they also got big wallets to just give away money to the larger institutions in our communities or nonprofits. So this was a bank that was founded by preachers, so that used to be, just our business, as well as the guys that are in D.C. and Philadelphia and Chicago. And that's no longer the case.
Yeah.
So it's been a really painful experience. This was really gratifying because you have the leaders of the financial industry sort of saying, we think there's a place for you in this business, and you ought to have a minute to kind of figure that out,
Mm-hmm.
And most of these guys not only put the money in, but they're leaning in to help us on our business model.
I couldn't help but look at your, I think before you went out and raised the additional capital, the stock price was at about 45 cents a share.
Yeah.
And now it's at $3.50 a share a year later.
Yeah.
Very impressive as CEO.
Yes.
When you're looking to hire somebody at Carver, what do you look for in that person?
The mindset that it's not about you, whoever came up with that phrase,
Right.
God bless them, and that you're part of a team. You want the institution to look good. You want the institution to be successful while you're being personally successful. And you got to be all in it to get that result.
There you go. Well, you've certainly been all in it from the very beginning, I will say. Debbie Wright, President, CEO, Carver Bank, cannot thank you enough for having me over.
Thrilled to be a part of it.
All right.
Thank you.